Comerford. I didn't realize she was still the executive chef at the White House, still under Biden. But it means that she had to hang in through Obama and through Trump. You know, and now through Biden, does it mean that Trump was eating Filipino food? Maybe that's why he gained all the weight. So the White House had their annual Filipino American history. I guess it's a party, it's an event, but it's on Zoom, right? So it's never quite what it could be, but it was still kind of interesting. I was glad that I had some things to do, but I had it on. I was watching. Ruby Ibarra does her little rap thing at the beginning to get you totally in the mood. Just to show that it's a young person's thing, right? It's not totally like just old people talking about being Filipino. So that was good. They had young guys like Jason Tenko, who's the MC. That was good. They had, there's a lot of people who are connected with the administration who are Filipino American. I knew one of them, Francie Youngberg, was there during the Clinton years when I was working in Washington for Norm Mineta. There was Francie. I knew Francie Lim Youngberg. I knew she was Filipino, but back then. But usually, people go into the administration, they go into public service, and then they move on. But she has hung in there, which is great. Through the Clinton years, I guess she went away, when it wasn't Democratic, and then there was right, and then she certainly wasn't there during the Trump years, but now she's back in the administration, and she was talking to a number of people that I was surprised. Gina Ortiz Jones, who was running out of Texas. She's a veteran, but she's now an undersecretary within the Clinton administration, the Biden administration. One of the things that I noticed about the Filipinos who are represented at this event is how diverse the Filipinos were. Gina Ortiz Jones she's openly gay. She's a veteran. She ran for office in Texas. Now she's serving and, quite articulate. She lost her race in Texas by just a few points. So I looked at her and I thought she has the potential to be in office at some point. She's going to run. She's a politician. I could just tell by her demeanor. And this is what happens when politicians lose, right? If you're in the party, you get rewarded, you get a job within the administration. But she's an up-and-comer, Gina Ortiz Jones. Look out for her. Then I noted, and they were all talking about their backgrounds, like some were from Pangasinan, some from their grandparents. This is a younger generation, so they're talking about their grandparents. In my case, it would be my parents. So I did notice that they were younger, but diverse, right? Diversity in terms of gender, LGBTQ. There were Filipino African Americans. Bobby Scott, the only member of the House who's Filipino or has part Filipino roots. I believe his grandmother was Filipino. Bobby Scott from Virginia, the Hampton Roads area, which is really Filipino because of the Navy. But Bobby, African American, Filipino, he was there when I was there in Washington, once again serving in the office of then Congressman Norm Mineta. But man, Bobby Scott, still at it, still the only Filipino American. There was a Filipino American named TJ Cox who's half Filipino. and but he was defeated by David Valadao in California. So, like I said, very diverse group. There was Todd Gloria, who's a mayor of San Diego, and I was looking at his background, and Todd Gloria says he describes himself as, let's see, I think I took a picture of this, his bio, but he's part Indian, he's part Filipino. So a lot of these part Filipino guys, and he's also gay and Democrat, which is really wild for San Diego, right? A guy who was really surprising, who showed up as he gave a little talk, was Ron Nierenberg of San Antonio. The mayor of San Antonio is partially Filipino. I looked him up, Ron Nierenberg, Ashkenazi Jewish descent from Poland and Russia on his father's side, and on his mother's side, mixed Filipino, Malay, and Indian and British heritage. His parents met while in the Peace Corps in Malaysia. So now that's a mix, right? And you look at Nuremberg. Now, because his father was Jewish and not his mother, he technically is not Jewish. But ethnically from his father, yes, he's a mix. But I hadn't heard of Mayor Nuremberg. I had heard of Mayor Todd Gloria. So they had these guys from around the country and these women who are serving in the Biden administration come on. But the one I was drawn to, because I saw his name and said, well, let's see what he has to say, was of course Rob Bonta. And Bonta's interesting. Like I said, he grew up, both his parents Filipino. His mother has the same birthday as me. I met her once, and she said, "Oh, do you know my son?" Okay, yeah, I know your son. But Rob is now Attorney General, and he is up for election in November. But now he's smart. He's kind of bulldozing the opposition because he's got Democratic money and he's the incumbent. He was appointed by Newsom. Top cop in California, Attorney General. And he's showing really how to run when you're the top cop, when you are the incumbent. You just do stuff. And you do stuff that people are going to remember. Like you take a stand on the assault weapons ban when there's shootings nationwide. You come out against fentanyl and busting drug dealers. You come out against Amazon. You sue Amazon. He's one of the few states suing Amazon for gouging California consumers. That's how you make a name. And that's why I'm kind of bullish on Bonta, because I think Rob Bonta, if you're looking at Filipino leaders nationwide, he's already in a seat that, Attorney General of California. Who comes to mind, right? That the woman, the female, she's Asian sometimes, most of the time. She's mostly black, she says. But when she's Asian, when she's pushed, of course, we love Kamala Harris, right? We all love. We don't? No, we do. We do. Kamala Harris. She doesn't lead with her Asian. She saves it. She's kind of stealth. But she loves the black African-American connection. She loves her Howard sisterhood. And, that's her thing. But when pressed, and when she's pressed, like during the debate, she pulls out her mother card. Here's my mom. She had cancer. She sent my sister to school. She put us on a bus. She's cagey. I like her. I like Kamala generally. Those who know my history, I've written about her. We haven't really always seen eye to eye, Kamala Harris and myself. But look, I think it's great that she's vice president. I don't like the fact that she's not being used as much, but she was the Attorney General. And she used it to catapult to higher office. Boom. same role Rob Bonta is. I think Bonta has the same capability of being catapulted as a Filipino American. I mean, there's no question. One thing I like about Bonta, he's figured out the smile thing. He is a little too toothy, too gummy. Now someone's probably said, "Hey, look, that looks kind of fake. You got to be more authentic." And I'm glad. I'm telling you, Bonta, if you're looking for Asian American leaders who are on a perch right now that still has some upside, in the same way that Kamala Harris had upside after Attorney General, and Javier Becerra, for that matter. He's at right HHS, but not doing as well. So his story isn't quite as as rich as Kamala jumping from AG to VP. Bonta, who knows where he's going to go? But I think there's the Filipino American leader who can translate into national leadership. Because right now, in terms of the national stage, in terms of Filipino Americans, Bobby Scott in Congress, that's it. For Filipino Americans, Bobby Scott. And then you got George Conway, who appears on CNN, who is Republican, who is known because, he'll take a swipe at Trump, but he's a Republican, he's a conservative. But at least on the issue of Trump, he's on the right side. He's half Filipino. So here is Bonta talking about Filipino American Heritage Month this year, the special year, the 30th year since the Filipino American National Historical Society got it codified by Congress. Here is Bonta talking about this month.
We celebrate more than representation, because it's not just about having a seat at the table, it's about using our seat. The Manongs and Manangs, they didn't sit idle, and neither do we. As California's first Philam AG, I'm using my office to widen the cracks for justice our ancestors first chipped away at. Fighting hate through a new racial justice bureau. Empowering communities through a new office, CARE. Investing in new efforts to tackle crime and gun violence, all as I take action to keep costs for businesses down, wages for workers high, and a marketplace that's fair. Because as Philam leaders, we walk in the steps of our parents, in the steps of our Lolos and Lolas, and the generation of Pinoy changemakers that came before us.
See, he links it all, right? And then he tells about all the stuff he's doing as AG. I don't know how many people were at this event because it was just like a webinar. Couldn't tell. But Rob Bonta, if you're a Filipino American looking at politics or in politics, national, local, statewide, you're looking at Bonta and saying, yeah, there's a guy. There's a guy who is Filipino American. He's making history with every move because heretofore there was not a Filipino American doing quite those things.
We each carry on their fight for justice, for representation, for progress.
He's talking about the fights that the change makers, the people before. So now that's one thing that's good about Bonta. He's like in his 40s, 50s. He's fairly young. Look, the long tail of politics. That's where, I mean, look at Biden. Where's Bonta going to be when he's 70, right? That's why if you were making bets about political futures, if you're going into the political futures market, you'd have to say Filipino American History Month, Bonta. You'd go long Bonta, as they say in the stock market. Go long Bonta.
Just like they were, today we too are history makers. And this month we say loudly and we say proudly that we will keep on making it. Happy Filipino American History Month. Mabuhay.
See, you got to close with a mabuhay, right? Not just a hi, not just a mabu, not just a ma. You got to go mabuhay. And that's, if you're going to go to a Filipino thing, right? That's why I have my gong and my barong Tagalog behind me today, right? Because I'm talking Filipino American History Month. Hey, by the way, check out my ALDEF blog, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, aaldef.org/blog. I write about Filipino American History Month there, but also go in the search bar, or actually just go to Google, right? And put down Emil Guillermo, my name, and then ALDEF, and then First Filipinos. And then you'll see the significance of October. Because it was mentioned. I mean, I think people now are getting it, right? First Filipinos. They came in 1587. Banta mentioned it. I talked about it the other day on my show. Check out show 413, I think. This is episode 415. Check out 413. I go into the origin story, and you can find that on amok.com. But it's a real thing, Filipino American History Month. There's 4 million of us. That's a lot. 4 million Filipinos. And it just keeps growing, right? There used to be just like 400,000, but it's grown. That's what being Catholic gets you. That's what having, the immigration system's broken because it'd be a lot more. A lot of them are waiting to get in, right? So it's an interesting group at the White House putting together this Filipino American history webinar for whomever. You didn't have to be Filipino, but seeing Banta, that was good, and some of the up and coming electeds and some of those who could be elected, like Gina Ortiz Jones. She ran out of Texas. Now she's out of Washington. She's an undersecretary in the Biden administration. I'd say watch out for her. I'd say, there's a tremendous diversity that I noticed. A lot of, half mixtures. Ron Nuremberg, San Antonio's got a little bit of Filipino. At this point, we're going to claim everybody. We're going to claim everybody. If you got a little bit, because we still need representation. We still need to be there. Oh, and then they had Rosita Lee talking about the White House as an Asian American commission, and they had people like Louisa Blue, who is a labor leader. She was there. They had Amy Agbayani from Hawaii. So it was interesting. So it was a little talk, little panel. They had Ruby Ibarra. And then they had Chris Comerford. I'd never met Chris Comerford, the White House executive chef, but she prepared a dish called echebiche. 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 I just remember my father talking, because my father was a cook. Echebiche. And I just kept thinking of a son of a bitch. What are you talking about, Dad? Echebiche. And it's really just a concoction you prepare with a little patis. You can actually if you're vegan, you can do away with the patis. But it's little oils and patis and some vegetables, sliced carrots and ginger and daikon and sliced, right? And you mix it up, and then you put it on a fish. And as you broil the fish and you score the fish, you put the dressing. This thing you prepare is a dressing on the fish as you bake it. And I'm thinking, what's the vegan version here? And you could probably do something echebiche tofu, eche tofu, or something, because it's just the flavor, right? A little, instead of patis, the fish sauce, use soy and then ginger and maybe some garlic, and my mouth waters as I talk about it. Anyway, Chris Comer, I wonder if she had echebiche for Donald Trump. Yeah, I don't know if she did or not. You think she did? And I don't know if Trump would know what betcha he was dealing with. Anyway, welcome to the program. It's Emil, Amok's Takeout. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific live. 2 p.m. Pacific live because this is as a broadcast. Look, my I don't know. I'm not in the pantheon of Filipino American history quite in the same way as, say, a Politico, but in journalism, I was the first Filipino American to have a national news program when I hosted All Things Considered in the 80s. I mean, when you get to a sea of white and then, you're the Filipino guy, I mean, that's a big deal. And to my knowledge, I don't know if there was ever another Filipino, not an NPR, or another. There might have been one at CBS News on the weekend, but there I was. I was anchoring All Things Considered, which was, it's kind of a magazine news interview show. First one, 1989. And so that's sort of my claim, because no matter where you are, no matter what profession, no matter what industry, if you're Filipino in America, this is the existence, right? There you are. You really like X. You do your thing in X. You move up in the ranks, and there you are at this is where they let the Filipinos go, right? And you say, wow, where are the other Filipinos? I'm the only one here. And this is why it's interesting that the people who were on this White House thing, who were part of the military, because this was for real. Gina Ortiz Jones mentioned this, how her family came as stewards in the Navy, because that's how they allowed Filipinos to become citizens or to join the Navy. And then, of course, when you're in the Navy as a steward, that means you're an enlisted type ensign. That's the highest rank. You can't be an officer. And a lot of those stewards, they end up working, if they're lucky, the highest post, the White House, cooking and serving for the president. I mean, that's why that Walt Nauta story, if you go to the Aldef blog, I wrote that the other day. Walt Nauta from Guam was a steward, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, who could forget Bayani Nelvis, who was a steward under Clinton, served in the pantry, got Monica Lewinsky Clinton cigars. That was heretofore Filipino history, but it's changing. When you see guys like Bonte, you see people like Gina Ortiz Jones, you see those people who are in the White House celebration of Filipino American History Month. And we're talking 30 years. Now, that's a generation since the Filipino American National Historical Society said, hey, October's the day, or October's the month. And why? Because 1587, October 18th, 1587, that's when the first Filipinos came. And if you notice in all the speeches, everyone acknowledged in some way, well, ever since the first Filipinos came in 1587, Tomorrow Bay. Yeah, that would be great if that becomes like a thing that people remember. Just like, oh, Columbus, right, in 1492. Or I forget where or was it Plymouth Rock? The Pilgrims, right, in Plymouth Rock. People remember that. And they think, oh, they were there first? No, the Filipinos. Isn't that something? The Filipinos were first to what is the continental U.S., what is now the continental U.S. Of course, 1587, what was it? It was just what is now known as California and the Native Americans there. And the Filipinos were on a boat, deckhands for a Spaniard, Pedro de Unamuno, and he claimed Olive Morro Bay that he could see for Spain. Say, we just didn't have the right connections to say, no, I'm going to claim this for the city of Daly City. Or, I'm going to claim this for all the Filipino communities to come. Anyway, but check out episode 413 of the show on amok.com. And I go into the origin story, and you'll see why this is an important day. Yes, it's an important day. Of course, I want to talk about some other things today. We are really, we're in a tight election. I don't know if you noticed, they've started to vote in places. If you haven't registered to vote, I usually have my little registration thing. There's still time to register to vote. If you're in California, you have 15 days before the election that you can register. If you haven't registered, please register. Some places, I think they have same-day registration, but wherever you are, call your Secretary of State in your state. If you haven't registered, please register. Don't get left out of the party, is what I'm saying. And I don't mean Republican or Democrat. I mean the party, the big party of democracy we're going to have in November, less than 3 weeks from today, because it could decide really the direction of this country. One thing that if you were noticing the news, the big news today is, what direction is Great Britain going? Oh, don't they have a king now? No. We mean like the prime minister, right? We thought it was going to be Liz Truss. Liz Truss does not have the trust of anybody. She was hanging in there. I saw a little exchange between Truss and the parliament. And boy, she was like standing tall, knocking him down, saying, I'm here. But something happened between the time she did that footage and this morning when I woke up, because I guess she saw the polls. She got less than 10% of support from the people in Great Britain. And so she's out. And now they're looking for a new conservative. It could be this South Asian guy. But from what I see, what I'm reading, people don't like the fact that he's an elitist. He went to Stanford, Oxford. He doesn't appeal to the working class Brits who are conservative. They don't trust a South Asian who has an elitist kind of tendency, which is weird, right? Because he's a product of British elitism. When you say, oh, we don't know if this guy is good enough, right? His name is Rishi Sunak. We don't know if Rishi Sunak is. He tried to run. He lost to Liz Truss. What does that tell you? It tells you that if you're an Asian, if you're a minority, even if you are the right stripe politically, you're not trusted. I mean, not by the conservatives. And I'm sure when he went to Oxford, the thought was, oh, yeah, we could try. Yeah, I'm going to be this. This is the way I'm going to be. When he went to Stanford, I'm sure he said, I'm just following the footsteps of every elitist white person I know. He loses to Liz Truss, and now as people consider who takes over for Truss because she didn't cut it, because she had failed policies. Imagine. Rishi Sunak, did he hit his glass ceiling? I mean, that's really, that's what it's about. We all have our glass ceilings. That's why, you got to root for guys like Bonta here, because you see that, oh, Bonta's, he's got that elitist thing too, right? He went to Yale. He was born next to some farm workers in, around Bakersfield, Kern County. He was born, his mother worked in the labor movement. New Cesar Chavez. So maybe he's going to feel a little Rishi Sunak. I mean, actually, all of us, who come from modest backgrounds and, rise to a certain level. That's kind of a condition that we have, right? Shouldn't be. But we have now a generation since we first really established Filipino American History Month. And we got younger people coming up. And now a lot of those younger people are like doing their own thing, like Ruby Ibarra, saying, I can be a rapper. I can be in the arts. Point is, you could be you. We want you to be you. Anyway, the whole thing with Great Britain, what the headline in the Washington Post is, what direction is Britain heading in? Okay, that's cool. But what direction is America heading in? And it all stems from, how do we view our economic futures? And that's why the talk this week, remember Joe Biden got up there talking about abortion, thinking that abortion's the issue, and that gave people hope about maybe the Democrats will hold the Congress. But now it's not about abortion. It's not about Roe v. Wade. It's not about the Dobbs decision, which ended Roe. It's about other things like the economy. I saw a poll. CNBC did a poll, and it said that, where's that poll? The poll was pretty startling because it said that most people saw economic issues as more pressing than even the abortion, and that the people who had the advantage, let's see, the question was, which party would do a better job on inflation? The Republicans were ahead by 15 points in terms of, this America Economic Survey that was asked. On taxes, which party would do better? Republicans were up by 11 points. On creating jobs, Republicans were up by 10 points. That's kind of scary. All the economic issues, people think, oh, the Republicans are better. Not necessarily. I mean, and this is a key thing. It's not, you'll think, oh, well, yeah, the Republicans, they're way out in front here, aren't they? No. I mean, just checking the news, you hear Republicans talking about tax cuts. Kevin McCarthy talking about tax cuts. He's wanting to cut taxes when tax cuts what are tax cuts? You ask any economist, tax cuts would say, that's inflationary. That's going to increase. If you cut taxes, you're not going to have the revenues. You're going to increase the deficit. That's going to push inflation up, not down. And this is what Republicans are talking about. So there's a lot of disconnect between, you ask people which party would do a better job on inflation, and the Republicans are up 15 points. And if they're talking tax cuts now, when tax cuts are going to hurt the deficit and push inflation up, my God. Are we on the same page? I mean, the Democrats need to say, look, this is what Republicans are saying. This is what's going to happen if you go by the standard stereotype that, oh, the Republicans, they're fiscally responsible. They're so good with money. No, the Republicans are not good with money. Did you see that ProPublica report January 2021, where the national debt has risen by almost $7.8 trillion during Trump's time in office. $7.8 trillion. Furthermore, Trump built it up 7.8 trillion without having a war like George W. Bush or without having a civil war like Abraham Lincoln. Without benefit of war, the Republicans drove up the cost of government. $7.8 trillion, the national debt during Trump's time. And how was that? Tax cuts. Gave tax breaks to the rich. And now they're talking about, well, inflation, we're going to do more tax cuts. What? More tax cuts? Inflationary tax cuts? You're going to use that to fight inflation? The Republicans don't make sense. If you're one of those who feel that, oh, the Republicans are fiscally responsible. No, they are not fiscally responsible. That is a stereotype. Forget about that. And yet, like I said, this poll said on inflation, they said people said Republicans lead by 15 points there. On taxes, Republicans by 11 points. Creating jobs, Republicans by 10 points, according to this poll, CNBC poll. What are the Democrats good for? According to this poll, middle class. Talking about the middle class, up 4%, up 4. And healthcare, up 16. Which is true, but I think the Republicans get a lot of credit for their economic prowess when they have zero prowess. They have zero ideas. When all they have is Kevin McCarthy talking about these nonsensical things like, well, I guess, we don't want to write a blank check for Ukraine. You got to do what you can for Ukraine, because today's news about Britain, alongside what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, Russia martial law, and it's not just the annexed areas that they're going in. There's like a partial martial law in areas of Russia to try to quiet dissent. This is a serious time in the world. And we can't have people like Kevin McCarthy running Congress, running the House. We can't have Mitch McConnell back as the head of the Senate. And I'm looking at the numbers. There's 435 congressional districts, and the Democrats are ahead. Have a 221 to 212 lead. That means right now, Republicans, the Democrats look like they're going to lose like 12 seats. That would be enough for the Republicans to take the House. There are about 23 toss-up seats. We can't afford to lose any of those. Democrats can't afford to lose any of the toss-up districts. If you want to make sure that we stay the course and fight our economic problems responsibly, because the Republicans aren't going to be irresponsible. They just aren't. I think the only thing we can do really is hope that Democrats hold, because if the Republicans, if they win a majority of those toss-ups, just a handful of the toss-up seats, it could be bad. Bad for the direction of this country. So you go to the Washington Post website and it says, what direction is Britain going? I'm telling you, if in 3 weeks Congress goes and switches hands to the Republicans, the world will be wondering, what direction will the United States go in, because I don't know what the Republicans are saying when they're talking about tax cuts during an inflationary time. So as far as Asian Americans go, one of the toss-ups is California 45, and that's Jay Chen versus Michelle Steele, who she would be the incumbent, but this is a realigned district. Michelle Steele, Korean American, has been in the news because she knows her district makes up Little Saigon. She's Korean, but she's dealing with Vietnamese in Little Saigon, and she knows that those people in Little Saigon hate the Chinese. So she's gone in with flyers trying to paint Chen, who's Taiwanese American, painting him as a Communist Party sympathizer, which is ridiculous. Jay Chen is a veteran. Jay Chen is Ivy League educated. He's a smart guy. He has called out the race baiting of Michelle Steele. The LA Times has done a big takeout on the red baiting of Michelle Steele. And you just got to call her out. Michelle Steele trying to recover, trying to say, well, Jay Chen is trying to bring Chinese government materials into schools as a form of propaganda. It's false. Absolutely false. Michelle Steele can't undo the racism that she's brought to this race. But voters can, by voting against Michelle Steele and voting for Jay Chen in Congressional District 45 in California. But that's a race that you gotta pay attention to. Every toss-up race is important. Democrats can't afford to lose a one. Here's an interesting race, California 22, formerly held by TJ Cox, who was a Filipino American. Then he lost to David Valadeo. David Valadeo is Portuguese. His parents were immigrants, but essentially Portuguese are white in the valley. They run the big dairy farms. He's Republican. And the only reason why he's hanging in there, and it's a toss-up in what is a district that leans Democratic, is because Kevin McCarthy protected Valadeo, refused to let Donald Trump come in and primary Valadeo. Valadeo is not bad for a Republican. Valadeo wanted Trump impeached. He voted for impeachment. So he's a kind of good guy Republican. But he's protected by Kevin McCarthy, and he will owe Kevin McCarthy big for making sure that Trump didn't come in and primary him. So you can't cross over and say, Valdeo's a good guy. He might be of the valley. His family has a big dairy farm. He lost to TJ Cox and then beat him. And then TJ Cox had there's some legal issue. Don't want to get into because it's just allegations about some kind of reporting of campaign donations. But David Valadeo is running against Rudy Salas. Here's why Rudy Salas in California 22 is worth a look. And it's important because it's hard to believe this. But Rudy Salas would be, if he wins, and it's a toss-up, he would be the first Latino representing the Central Valley in Congress. Hard to believe, but I saw that in the Fresno Bee, and it's really kind of a toss-up there. I can see why people like Valadeo, why you might call in some some old favors because his family's been dairy farmers there for a long, long time. But the Democrats need that seat. Democrats need that seat. They need California 22. They need California 45. They need every seat. If they lose just a handful of the toss-up seats, then the House goes red, not blue. And you know, the Democrats can't afford any losses in the Senate. And, you know, we've talked about Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance in Ohio. We talked about Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock in Georgia, and then the Fetterman Oz race. Oz, the dog vivisector. Fetterman has the stroke, but is recovering. Cognitively is fine, but how many people are going to put him down because they're fooled by the smooth talk of Oz, the vivisector? I'm telling you, this is not like a midterm where you say, well, it's a referendum on Biden, and usually the incumbent loses, right? And usually it goes the other way. Can't afford that. Got to get out there. You got to vote. And if you haven't registered, you got to register. It's that serious. It's that serious. I want to talk about one last thing before we leave for today, and that is Kevin DeLeon. We talked about, if you go to my Aldef blog, I talk about Kevin DeLeon as one of the Hispanic leaders who were in on that telephone call that was leaked. The telephone call took place a year ago, but it was leaked on October 9th. Almost a year after this conversation about splitting up district lines of the LA City Council. Nuri Martinez was the most outspoken person, and she was saying the most racist things, at least in the tape that was released that I heard, and she was forced to step down. Now, I thought it was bad, but was it enough to sink her? Some people, I mean, that's a point of disagreement for a lot of people. Some people say, if you're going to make these disparaging remarks about people of color, you don't belong representing them. If you're trying to be helpful in a nonpartisan way and just trying to use some of the power that Nuri Martinez has, maybe you would want to work with her and say, you know, Nuri Martinez, people talk about you being maybe the next mayor of LA at some point. She was president of the city council in LA. Would it be wiser not to cut her loose and say, down, you're bad, we're making you feel the shame, we're making you resign? Would it have been better if they used her power, people against her, instead of being so willing to shut her down? Just a question. I raised it to some people the other day, and they said, Emil, she's not worth being a public official if she says this disparaging stuff about her folks, about indigenous people, about blacks. I said, but within the context, is it that bad? And they said, yes, yeah. Well, really, I mean, here's a woman with a lot of power. Would it be better if you know you have her number and then you work with her to achieve more power, to share power? I don't know. Maybe someone did. Maybe someone tried that. Maybe that's why we did not see this tape until a year later. because people thought, hey, it's not blackmail. It's like, but we know what you said. You want to see us release this? And maybe it was like, you go ahead. I'm so powerful. You can't hurt me. And then they hurt her. I don't know. I don't know the backstory. All I know is a tape that was made a year ago was ultimately released before the midterms, and Nuri Martinez was forced to resign. And now they're asking for the two other LA City Council people to resign. Kevin DeLeon, who says he's not. It looks like he's going to like ride it out. Gil Cedillo has already been primaried, so he's not going to be around much longer. So it's almost moot to ask for his resignation. More symbolic than anything. For Kevin DeLeon, it's kind of a statement, and it would be a power play, but he's holding firm. And you got to say, well, he said nothing. He said nothing during the tape. So he didn't say, well, although I was reading one column in the LA Times that said that he did say some incriminating things politically, disparaging remarks. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see how it plays. If he hangs in there, how people will remind him, you said this, we're never going to let you forget it. Once again, not seeing that if they work together, maybe they could extract more from Kevin DeLeon. This is the kind of unique diversity politics we're in right now. It's hardball. It's almost sad because how can an established how can a group like the Latinos in LA not see someone established like Kevin DeLeon and say, you know, we got him. Let's work with him. And maybe we can extract some power as he not steps down fully, but as he uses power to help us gain power. At some point, someone had to say, we tried that, and now we don't trust him. And now they released his tape, and now they're calling for his head. So it's just interesting. Politics is interesting. And if you've read my columns in Inquirer.net, I think it's a group of young, labor-oriented politicos. And one of the first ones who will emerge is this guy Mejia out of LA, who's running for controller. He signs a check. He's a CPA. He's no nonsense, wants to make government run efficiently and for the people. He might actually be one of the first beneficiaries of the fallout, because whoever was behind leaking of this tape feels their power. All right, I think that's it for today. I think we got a full boat of stuff. We talked about Bonta, had a little soundbite from Bonta. I'm telling you, Bonta, watch out for Bonta. And here's the thing. I said this whole thing with the LA City Council causing new coalitions to be formed. Blacks and Asians against Latinos. And I say blacks and Asians because I think a lot of them were upset because the Koreatown district, which you'd think, oh, mostly Koreans? No, mostly Latinos. And they were going to break up that district to make it more Latino friendly and not Asian or black friendly. They wanted more Latino power in the 15 city council districts in LA. So interesting. I think we'll keep watching this model in LA as it develops. Young folks coming in. Young controller up against a city council member in LA for controller, Filipino American. So we got to watch that. That's an interesting local race. So you could do two things at the same time: watch the locals and then watch the big state races that have national implications, especially the congressional ones where toss-up races, the Democrats have to win. They have to retain the Senate. They got to retain the House. It is going to be close. All right, regular listeners to this show know that you can get in touch with me. See back issues of the show at amok.com. Also on Twitter at Emil Amok, Emil Amok. On YouTube, my pathetic YouTube channel, Emil Guillermo. At YouTube saying they're going to handles. So at Emil Amok 1, YouTube. Also check out Facebook, fb.com/Emil Guillermo or Emil Guillermo.media. So fb.com/Emil Guillermo.media. Replays there, other stuff there. Safest bet, go to amok.com. So, we wind down this portion of our show with a little meditation, because I know sometimes it must not seem that way, but I do practice meditate. It has helped me. It has helped me become less reactive, more thoughtful. I'm trying. And we always end our program with a little variation of the loving kindness meditation. Where sometimes you start out thinking about someone you love or mentor, someone you respect. Some days you think about people you hate because you need to show love to them. Or maybe people you're neutral to, because you have to, if you can show love to the people you're neutral to, that gets you on track to really embracing and showing love to everyone. Everyone, meaning really that fourth group of really where you are showing love to all. Because a funny thing happens. You show it to all and it comes back to you. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Back again tomorrow. Live, 2 p.m. Pacific. Catch the replays on amok.com. Till next time. Echebiche? No. Mahal Kita.